Here's Earthrise RC. This is considered by a lot of people of being one of the worst figure in the War for Cybertron line. And it's so bad that it's even considered and is probably going to be the next Plastic Addict. A lot of people think it's one of the worst Transformers. I've seen some people say that it's worse than Revenge of the Fallen RC, which, alright, slow the fuck down. It's not that bad. Yes, this figure has a lot of problems, and also mine has unfortunate paint chipping.
You know me.
The Kingdom re-release wasn't very good, I guess, but it does have a lot of problems, and it has possibly the laziest transformation of any Transformer I've ever seen. But give it credit. This is, I think, the best robot mode of any RC I've ever seen. The Bat Kibble is second to Ocular Max has Leia. The anatomy and proportions are very good. And the head sculpt, while it is unpainted, is very nice. I actually prefer it over the Studio Series one, which looks kind of dopey. If you gave it proper paint, which, I mean, if I knew how to paint these figures, I could definitely do. It would look fantastic. It would be like a perfect representation of a robot mode. Granted, 95% of what makes this figure good, or 95% of the good stuff, is the robot mode. The car mode, well, you can't just get the Studio Series one for that. But it's not awful. It's not great as a Transformer, but hey, I think the robot mode is fantastic. So, it's not a bad toy. It's just kind of a weak release in the line. Yeah, here's the ranking that I would probably give it. Here's another figure that people say is pretty bad, the Kingdom Rhinox. And this one has some glaring and, like, really questionable flaws. Like, the color scheme is abysmal. It's this ugly lime green, this gray poop brown. Doesn't look like Rhinox. That head sculpt is just not there. It's not accurate at all. And like all the other head sculpts for Beast Wars characters have been on the money, except for this one. That being said, and I know some people disagree, I think the anatomy is incredibly accurate. It's got a lot of the green parts for the body. It's got the right amount of shoulder size. I mean, maybe the Generation 1's a little bit more accurate, but I don't know. I think the build is better. Granted, his feet are a little bigger, but I'd rather have his feet be bulkier than, like, all the bulk on his chest. And, like, the chest itself, like the rhino jaw, I think that's clever. It's a fun transformation, in my opinion. I can totally understand why some people hate it. And the rhino mode's really good. It's not a bad toy. It just needs a re-release so that it's the correct colors and maybe a better head sculpt. Because I feel like if all of those things are addressed, the rest of the figure's problems, outside of maybe the weapons, are nitpicks. Like, oh, he's got an extra toe. It's supposed to be 4, but there's 5. Like, bro, who fucking cares? Like, okay, yeah, who cares? You're splitting hairs over fucking toe detail, back toe detail. And I'd say this is, I think, the third most unpopular figure in the line. The Ironhide and Ratchet. Ironhide's considered worse, so I have him out. Y'all know me, though. I love this figure. I think it's cool. Robot mode's great. Transformation is fun, even with the parts forming. Van mode is imperfect, but I like how big and chunky it is, even compared to the Studio Series. I like playing with this thing more than the Studio Series. I feel like even once I got down how to transform that thing, like, the hooks are going to break the hinges on top of the car. So, there's that. I still really like this toy, and I didn't mind paying $50 for it with the custom wheels as well. Yeah. So, I don't think it's a bad toy by any means. And plus, yeah, he does parts form, but you can also give him the fan mode, which I've already shown off, so I'm not going to talk about him anymore. No, I don't like calling a toy bad because it has 1 or 2 problems, even if those problems are huge. Alright, I try to look at every aspect, and I think right now, they're on a roll. And even if they don't always nail the landing, I can look in the good in most Transformers. But here, in my hands, is, I think, the one time they released something that was actually bad. And it's disappointing. It really is. Kingdom Tracks. I hate to say it, but this toy sucks. It's disappointing. It looked so good, but this figure has fatal flaws. It does. The car mode itself looks really nice, but what is this? Every copy has had these issues. At least I'd say 95% of them. And listen, defective toys, I don't consider a negative because that varies from toy to toy. I remember I saw some dude like make the top 5 worst Transformers of 2022, and literally his number 2 was a figure that he said was really good, but he personally had a defective copy, like he had a couple of loose joints, even though everyone else said theirs was fine, but he still put it on the list as bad toys because he got unlucky, which I think is bullshit. That's like, it sucks, but you have to, it is what it is. You gotta like look at it a bit more objectively. The only time I look at something like this is if it's a widespread issue. And this is a widespread issue. I've heard everyone complain about this. This is not just a, oh, I got unlucky. Like for me, my first Kingdom Rat Trap, his ankle was stuck. It got stuck. It broke. So you know what I did? I bought another one. It didn't have that problem. No one else said that. Transart Rat Trap I have. The little hinges for like the stomach that fold out. Those were screwed in so tight, I nearly broke them. So you know what I did? I just loosened them up. And no one else has said anything about it. So I don't consider it a flaw with the figure. I just got unlucky. But if everyone is having this issue, or at least most people, then it's a problem. And these really do ruin the toy. Well, it's not the only problem, but it is a major problem. And it's unfortunate. The rest of the car is nice. I've heard some people complain, oh, they're white, they stick out, but like, boo-hoo. That's not a real problem. Here's another major issue with the toy. The clear plastic. I hate clear plastic. Look, all the clear plastic does is you expose the insides, which you can see like robot parts. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Because now 95% of the car is made out of clear plastic, which is known to break. This is gonna kill a toy. I mean, Animated Swindle is a great toy, but he breaks. Studio Series 86 Jazz is such a cool toy, but because he is made out of clear plastic, and because it is so fucking fragile, I don't mess with it. I just leave it in one mode, and I just don't touch it. And for a Transformer, where transforming is the important part, that is not okay. But this entire figure is made out of clear plastic, so yeah, it's a pretty bad case of it. And it wouldn't even be so bad if it wasn't for the fact that some of these parts, some of these steps weren't terrible. I'll give them credit. You can... It's tabbed in really tight. You can do this. And also, one thing that's weird, this is a bunch of gray all over it. I thought it was paint chipped right out the box, but no, it's blue plastic that's painted gray over it, so just messy paint job. But again, I got unlucky. Oh, and the gray part's right there. Because I have to dig my nails, even if they're non-existent, into it and have to force it out, paint chipping. Yeah, that's fun. So now you can have the flying car. You can slide these parts out if you want. Yep. And there you go. That's not too bad. But again, oh, jeez. Maybe I mistransformed this a little bit, but I don't know. The transformation is terrible. You know what? Let's just go ahead and transform it. Yeah, this is just terrible. This is... I hate this. These are on like really loose hinges. They're awful, and you have to slide these multiple ways into this clear plastic, and it is not fun, and it doesn't like to sit together. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. That could be a consideration. But even with that, you have to force these out, and that can break. I don't know if there's any stories about it breaking yet, but yeah, trying to get these connected is a fucking nightmare, and it is not fun, and it messes up the car because it's so easy to fuck up. But let's see. Look, there's nothing here. All right, there's nothing intrusive. All right. Well, now it's still sticking together a little bit, so I don't know. Maybe I did something wrong, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of people still be like, it doesn't really connect together. It's just, it could have used a couple more redesigns. And again, this is all clear plastic. Imagine if this was all the same color plastic and they just painted black on the windows. They did that for Dead End, and it was great. That's like my favorite Stunticon outside of Motormaster that they made for Legacy. And then there's like this part, which I don't even know what you're supposed to do. You're like supposed to slide this around and then like extend that, and that's supposed to tab into place, and we will talk about that in a second. Then you slide that around. Okay, yep, there you go. There you go. There you go. Okay. Yep, there's his legs done. Okay, this part's actually kind of cool. Some people complain about like the fake parts here, but I don't mind fake parts as long as they're clever about it, you know? And that works. That works. He's got like the backpack on the back, but that's just part of his design. Oh, no, you want to slide that back. And you gotta pop this out, which again, because it's clear plastic, feels a little scary. And then you gotta tab this in somewhere. Yep, right there. And that just doesn't really sit flush, or does it? I don't know. I push this up any further? I don't think so. Maybe? Nope, you cannot do that. Okay, well, that's wonderful. And just tap that into place. Oh, and then, pop that into place. That's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. Put the hands out. And there you got Trax in his robot mode, which is really unfortunate because a majority of it looks great. In fact, I don't know where I put his weapons. You give him this. That completes the look. You give him this gun. It's decent. It looks good enough. Doesn't look too bad. In fact, it looks fantastic, but these legs, they ruin everything. Like, what is this? It's connected all the way. Okay, push that in, and it'll lock it into place. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah, it just moves out on its own because these tabs are so fucking tiny. They just pop out of place so fucking bad. Look at this. That's horrendous. That is terrible design. And if they tabbed in the place, I could forgive it. But they don't. And it just makes messing with this dude a fucking hassle. And remember, it's not just robot mode. These parts are an issue in car mode as well. So that's no good. That's no good. And even when they're connected, they don't look that amazing. They look hollow as shit. They got these spaced out legs, which doesn't ruin the figure itself. If that was its only issue, I think the robot mode would be great. Because the top half looks like Trax. It's nice. It's accurate. I think it's even more accurate than the Masterpiece. So applauds to that. But the legs just fucking ruin it. And it really is a shame. It's just some of the worst engineered legs I've ever seen on a Transformer. Well, second worst. So let's just go through articulation. Head's on a ball joint. Shoulders go back and forth. They can go out. That's pretty good. Bicep swivel. Bend in the elbow. No wrist articulation. That's okay. I can live with that. Waist swivel's pretty cool. And then you can lift up the skirt to like move the legs. You can bend those terrible ass knees. There you go. Look at that cool transformation. Look at that articulation. Isn't that so cool? You know what? This wouldn't even be a problem, but these are fucking loose. They're loose, and they don't plug in. Why don't they plug in? I don't know. And then the ankles, they can move up and down, and they pivot. So they got that going. But it feels like a fucking mess. Say what you will about this figure. This figure feels amazing to pose. No, don't do that pose. You're you fucking weirdo. Yeah, it feels amazing to pose. It feels great. Granted, doesn't really have any parts to transform, but this feels great. I love posing that. This guy feels nice, sturdy, like a brick. That's good. Even Rhinox, which my copy have pretty, especially this one, really loose hinges. I wish these were screwed in like the third-party version. But, you know, even with that, like his legs you'd think would be a mess, but no, they tab in very well. They're very decent. They feel much better than the Generations version, that's for sure. I'd still say the Generations figure is a little better. Even with these loose joints, I'd rather pose this guy than this thing. This thing just feels like shit. It, I think, is the worst feeling figure in my entire collection. And it's a shame, because it looks good. And let's just go into the fucking overall analysis. It looks amazing. It looks like Trax. But looks isn't everything. This is a toy. I know we all like to be like, oh, Transformers are like action figures. They're like display pieces. But these are toys, especially mainline ones. The reason people like War for Cybertron so much is that even at their worst, they still feel amazing. When they feel bad, I just don't like it. The car mode looks good, but it's got some integrity problems. Its transformation is almost fun, but getting this tabbed into the front is a nightmare, and it feels bad. And the robot mode, it's just so sloppily done. And again, these mitigations could have been prevented. That sounded fucking stupid. But these problems could have been prevented. 1 or 2 more redesigns. Maybe add a bigger peg here. Maybe add something else to the vehicle mode. I don't know, but all 3 are so compromised and not fun. So overall, I can't recommend this figure. I don't think it's a good toy, and that's a shame, because it's, even at its worst, this War for Cybertron figure still looks a lot like the character and looks impressive. I see it in the box that I have him in. I'm like, oh, you know, I like both him and Skids. I like, you know, the 2 blue car dudes that were introduced in 85. One's kind of a modest little minivan, and then you have Trax, who's like the, you know, the nice sports car, who's, you know, pompous asshole. He's not modest at all. I think that's an interesting character, and I really like messing with my Skids, but then I want to mess with this guy, and because he looks cool. Then I pick him up, I'm like, wait, this thing sucks. And it's really unfortunate. I'd rather have a figure that doesn't really feel like a Transformer, but still, you know, I can pick up and have a good time with. Looks great. I enjoy that. I'd rather have that than the figure that just feels like a mess. The feel of a the quality is the most important part of a Transformer. And they failed. They utterly failed. And again, a couple more redesigns. This thing could have been great, but it just isn't. So, what am I going to give him? I'm probably going to give him like a D. And D is failing. D is not passing. C is okay. It's like, okay, could have been okay. I can kind of recommend it. Can't recommend this guy. Even like to Trax fans. If you just want to, or people, you want a War for Cybertron style like Trax, anything's better than this. The G1, it's probably like a universe figure. Even the alternators, I'd rather get than this guy. So yeah, my choice for the worst Transformer in War for Cybertron history goes to this guy. However, there is one figure that is worse than this thing. I'll probably take a close look at him in just a bit. For now, I'm sorry that I haven't been posting as much Transformers reviews as possible. I've been doing a lot of reaction stuff. Did the Ghostbusters review. I'm working on a pretty big video. It's in the editing process right now. So I do apologize for that. So I decided, I forgot that this thing exists and I own it. And I haven't seen this guy nearly torn up to shreds as much as I feel like he deserves. So I thought it was a fun idea. So here's Mr. T's reviews on a big on Trax. Dude, my phone's covered in spit. Fuck.